about temperatures on the negative side of the thermometer. This also means that we're going to see an increase in risk for frostbite as well as hypothermia.
A monster winter storm, ominously called a bomb cyclone.
It's not just snow, it's wind and cold.
The deadly winter storm hitting Buffalo. More than 200,000 are without power.
Today is expected to be the hottest day of the year in the Northeast, with the heat index topping 100 degrees. July is on track to be the hottest month in history.
Still a smoky haze around and still some...
The wildfires are not going to be put out. Many of them are burning out of control.
Sewage overflow.
Catastrophic flooding in the Northeast. 8 inches of rain in just hours. The capital of Vermont tonight underwater. The city still deemed...
Officials estimate the damage in the tens of millions. Heavy visible damage from the air from southern Vermont to New Hampshire.
When we talk about the climate economy, it involves every innovation, the whole spectrum of solutions that we'll need to bring to market to take on the climate crisis. We have enough technology developed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by more than 60% over the next 10 years, but how do we bring that to bear?
I think we've done the most megawatts in terms of utility scale projects. In New England, most of that has been in Maine. While we're advocating for a project, you can see the importance of actually having an organization like NECEC advocating for policies, advocating among the states in terms of economic development, jobs and businesses. Think about what it takes to put 1,000 megawatts of wind turbines in operation. It'll take multiple years and a lot of companies, a lot of manpower to make it happen.
Clean heat is not an easy thing to solve. It's a giant challenge. For cities like Boston and Cambridge, it's 2/3 to 3/4 of the carbon comes from buildings. And then you think about all the residential units that we have across the region. So I see the mission of the NECEC as absolutely critical to our future and also to us being able to push the agenda more quickly than we might be able to do on our own.
I'm inspired by, the fact that we can deliver green energy in a big scale. It's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of cool technology like the vessel here, right, and the turbines, but it's a passion. I see that in the eyes of my team. They get up every morning because they want this. It's a passion.
It's a dramatic shift that we're seeing today in energy production. We're seeing a doubling in the amount of wind energy alone since 2014 and a doubling in the amount of solar energy since 2018. The challenge with renewables is that the sun don't always shine, particularly here in Massachusetts, and the wind don't always blow. And so we need to be able to take advantage of these resources when they are generating, and then be able to store that energy when they're not.
As we work to bring value back to communities, to engage them in this conversation, NECEC was a natural fit for us because we share this willingness to bring positive value back to communities that have been left out of this conversation in order to achieve successful renewable projects.
The Clean Energy Days that NECEC hosted were incredibly valuable for us. We met a number of state legislators that had maybe heard about grid enhancing technologies but weren't completely familiar, and really started some great conversations there at the State House in Maine and Connecticut, and have continued those relationships and found it to be a great opportunity to educate on a new way of building grid capacity.
We drive innovation in a very unique way at the Northeast Clean Energy Council. We are a trade organization. We have more than 300 members circulated through our accelerator program of Clean Tech Open, our partnership program of Navigate, more than 900 startup companies.
So MassCEC has been a proud partner with NECEC's Clean Tech Open Northeast and the Navigate program for over 12 years now. So at MassCEC, we do 3 things really. One is innovation and technology development. The second is once you have a technology that's commercially ready, how do we get it to scale? How do we get it out into the marketplace? And the third is workforce development. We have about 104,000 people today, and we'll need at least another 40,000 just in 2030, which is a short time away.
When starting a deep tech company, you have a lot of challenges. there is a need to not only de-risk the technology, typically on a long horizon, but also to have a fluency and a literacy in financials, in operational support. Also scaling manufacturing, and really importantly, building and growing a team with an enduring culture. These are all ways that NECEC and through Cleantech Open and Navigate have provided programming for us to really strengthen these business fundamentals.
NECEC for me has connected us to various different corporations, municipalities. So there's many different doors that can be opened. The investor that we actually got through Navigate has opened many of those doors. They've been super helpful to look at grant programs for us in a specific state. They've also helped us with hiring.
You can't have clean tech without talent. People are the driving engine. You can't meet your objectives and your bottom line as an organization without really thinking about how to ensure that you have diverse talent, that you have an inclusive organization, and we need that workforce in the Clean Energy Center. And without those individuals, we are not going to be able to meet a just transition, nor meet any efforts around decarbonization as well.
So when it comes to collaborations between Clean Energy New Hampshire and NECEC, obviously we're collaborating closely on policy matters, but also we're collaborating really closely with Barry Reeves, who's in charge of DEIJ and workforce down at NECEC, looking forward to how we can crack that nut here in New Hampshire, because workforce is a huge problem here. And of course, environmental justice is something that the entire nation is looking to grapple with. And those are areas I think that we're going to have really fruitful partnership in the years to come.
Solar as an industry has historically been really accessible to people who can afford it. And NECEC is making really big strides to make sure that we're addressing communities that can't generally afford it or don't own homes and can't put PV on their roofs. And so I think bringing solar to those communities is really big, but letting them see representation in our workforce as well is going to be huge going forward. When I interviewed, I was one of 3 women in the room, and when I finished my interview and they asked if I had critiques, I just mentioned that it was kind of a bummer to not see any women represented in a construction-based field that they're trying to bring inclusion into. And as a queer woman, it's really important for me to see representation on both fronts.
I was always the only woman of color in the room, and more specifically the only woman, especially when I entered the geothermal and heat pump space. And so by getting out there and starting Impact Energy, I have the real advantage of creating my own business and making sure that as I hire and take on projects, we can diversify what the workforce looks like and who we're doing projects for and with. Part of the benefits of being part of NECEC is really growing my social capital, getting to know some new connections, determining how I'm going to monetize my business to make sure I can have a lasting legacy in this space.
We drive policy by bringing the perspective from industry, our members, what it takes for policymakers at the national, state, regional, and local level. What do we need to unlock an investment?
I also want to acknowledge the Northeast Clean Energy Council, and I say that because, Joe, I appreciate all of your efforts and your partnership. I think one of the things that's special about Massachusetts is this secret sauce of people working together in government, state, local.
Connecticut is a small but mighty state. We have a lot of excitement and energy about what we do on the state level, policies that are shifting the way that we think, but we are also a small state. And so opportunities like NECEC afford us the ability to share knowledge and information about what's working in other states. How do we learn and build programs that can happen across borders? A great example of that is the Clean Energy Corridors program, thinking about how do you build a clean energy that goes from Massachusetts all the way down to New York, and how can we be supporting that from both the technology side and also from a state policy side.
Our legislators are constantly asking us, what are the other states doing? What examples can we follow? And so by being plugged into NECEC's network, we've got our finger on the pulse of what's happening all throughout New England. And that helps us educate our legislators about what the options are, what's viable, and what's working to bring more renewables online and address the crisis in our region.
NECEC plays the role of that convener, connecting innovation with investment, and work with our partners and stakeholders and allies fighting for economic justice, green jobs, environmental and social justice to create those equitable pathways to drive that economy.
You can accomplish more in an event like this
than you can in 2 weeks of Zoom meetings. You get to have really great conversations and then have really meaningful follow-ups. We're trying to use technology to make this an equitable transition. We can look at all these awesome federal opportunities and all these funding opportunities, and we can forget about the areas that the funding sources were designed for. Part of the partnership with NECEC and other companies that are here is bringing them together to say, hey, how can we bring these solutions to these places first before we bring it to mass market?
NECEC's core competency has always been about convening different stakeholders to engage in a dialogue about challenges we face to address climate change. And so events like today are really important to discuss an issue like the Massachusetts Climate Bank.
Going to an event like this, I think it's important for us to be all on the same page. If we could find sectors where we're aligning, I think that'll make it a lot easier to go state to state and to our neighbors, see if we can work on things together.
We are a consortium of like-minded energy users with that mission of reducing costs. Get the power, the buying power of a bunch of organizations together. And now what we're talking about collaboration is we know that brings the best results and it doesn't leave anyone behind.
If you're a company or an innovator that's not yet a member of NECEC, you should join because we are that connector to partnerships, demonstration projects, pilots, investment. The climate crisis compounds over time, and we don't have time to wait. We need a whole of society behind us, working together with innovation, with industry to take on our climate challenge and build this new economy.